This podcast may contain paid advertisements, but more on that later. Welcome to the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast, your go-to resource for unraveling the intricacies of business and leadership, honing in on the essence of bootstrapping a business from scratch. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, a dedicated bootstrapper, or a leader navigating life's various challenges, this podcast is crafted just for you. I'm Isaiah O'Connor, your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, and my mission is to guide you towards personal and professional growth. Let's embark on this journey together. So today I'm going to revisit the required secondary power of discipline. Now, honestly, I accidentally skipped this topic. Somehow, when I was going over my required secondary power series, I missed this one. Perhaps it was a subconscious avoidance of the subject, because discipline is one of those things that when you hear it, most people have like a little groan inside, like, discipline. We all know we need it, but actually doing it, that's another story. Now, in one of my more recent posts, when I talked about momentum, and I talked about how crucial it is to keep that flywheel going, to keep that top spinning, I was talking about how you have to do it every day and be on top of it. And that part, pushing that flywheel, is discipline. So when you're pushing up the flywheel to get going, with the resistance, you need the discipline to get it going. Now, for an example, when it comes to podcast, did you know that about 90% of podcasters don't make it past 3 episodes? They just don't have the discipline to keep pushing. So if you're wanting to do a podcast, for example, all you need to do to beat out 90% of the other people is just keep going, pushing past that first, second, and third episode, and just keep going. Now, every time you follow through, you're not just building habits, but your identity. You're proving to yourself, I can keep my word and I can follow through. I don't quit. As Jocko Willink, or however you pronounce his name, says, discipline equals freedom. Because when you master discipline, you gain the freedom to lead, grow, and thrive. And without it, you're at the mercy of your emotions, your distractions, and of course, your bad habits. Now, when it comes to discipline, there's a difference between external discipline and internal discipline. Now, you might be asking, what does he mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is when you have external forces creating the discipline structure for you, for example, at a 9-to-5 job, or some people in the military, that's pretty easy. When I was working at a youth camp, we had a very tight schedule. We had to get up really early. We had to be at breakfast by 7. 7:30 breakfast was over, and then 7:30 to 8, we had a little bit of a free moment, and then we had our first meeting of the day at 8, etc., etc., and went all the way through until evening, 9 o'clock bedtime. Very busy schedule, kept on top of it, and it was so easy to remain disciplined because it wasn't just us. It wasn't just me. I didn't have to come up with or enforce it. I had other people holding me in check and accountable, and I wanted to do it, and we had a goal, and we had a focus. We had the youth to serve and support, and so that was really easy to do. Even if I was tired, I could get up on time, eat, and get going and do things. So external discipline is very, very easy in comparison. We have someone else making you do it. Even if you voluntarily put yourself under their authority and are allowing them to tell you what to do, it's still much easier. Now, it's a little bit different when it's internal discipline, i.e., discipline that's self-discipline that you have to come up with yourself. That's a lot harder to do. When you're the one in charge, when you're the boss, especially if you're working, say, from home, It's much harder to be disciplined. There's so many more distractions. If you're at home, you could be like, oh, I have a nap. Or, hey, the kitchen's right there. I need a snack. Oh, I need another cup of coffee. Oh, yeah. Well, maybe if I just watch one more short. Oh, wait. Look at that Facebook post. It's very easy to get off track when you're the one who's in charge. When there's no external pressure, when there's not a boss there, a leader there, a schedule there, a plan there, it's so easy slipping off. Now, even if you have an office and a workspace, that's your workspace, which does help, by the way. If you have your own workspace, a place you go to work, that helps. So having your own workspace can help, but if you don't have your priorities in order and your discipline in order, you can easily get distracted. For example, I remember a couple of times where I had a bright idea for a brand new technique to do balloons. And I thought this was really cool. I came up with something new, something no one else has done. This is a cool technique. I'm going to try this out and perfect it. And I spent hours working on a new technique and thinking, this is great. This is something I can use for my clients. Awesome, great, cool. However, I didn't have a client for it. I had no request for this type of technique. I had no market for this technique. And instead of doing something that was more important, I focused on this. I could have been focused on, say, marketing, accounting, sales calls, cold calls, doing something to actually produce an income or to grow my business. But instead, I focused on wild ideas that I got instead of writing them down saying, I can revisit this, or here's an idea I have. I can come back to this. I got myself distracted, and I was told myself I was doing work. Sure, I was doing work. I was doing something that involved my business, but it was way out of what I needed to do to grow my business. Now, part of that was not having a good structured plan on figuring out what's important. Now, if you've ever read Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you haven't, you probably should. It's a great book. But he talks about a 4-quadrant system where you can prioritize what you need to get done. Now, how you do that, you can look it up online. It's all over Google. This is a big thing. It's been around since the 80s or 70s. I don't even know how long. But this is very important to do, and it's something that, funny enough, you have to be disciplined to sit down and do to maybe figure out what to do. So these 4 quadrants are urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important. Now, it's really easy to tackle the urgent and important because those are pretty obvious. When it's urgent and important, you just take care of it. Those are pretty straightforward. You have a client call and say, hey, can you come do balloons for us today? I know it's late notice. Can you do that? Sure, I can. No problem. That's urgent. It's important. Take care of your client. It's urgent. It's right now. And you go do it. Very clear. Then you have the things that are less noticeable, which are important but not urgent. And those are something you need to focus on as well, because if you don't pay attention to them when they're important, eventually they will become urgent and important, and you're rushing to do it. For example, with me, when I had an employee in Norway, you need to report your employee's income and work hours at the end of each month. If you fail to do so, you get a fine of around 890 kroner, which is roughly about $89 US, roughly, which is a pretty big deal. Now, it's a very important thing to once a month, you have about a week or so, to report your employees' income. After that point, they even give you some grace period, and after that point, you get a fine. So it's very important, but it was never an urgent thing on my list because it's something that you just do. Well, I failed to do that for a couple of months because I forgot to do it because my employee was on call and I didn't need him for 2 months in a row. So I didn't think about it. Well, I got a huge bill for that, and I had to go back in and pay the bill and do it because that important but not urgent thing, I let it slide until it became urgent and very, very important at that point. So you got to pay attention to those. And then you have the urgent but not important. They see things that seem important because of the urgency, but they're not really that important. Back to my idea of the balloon technique. In my head, it was urgent because I didn't want to forget and lose my idea. I wanted to make sure it worked. I wanted to test it out. I wanted to perfect it. That was very urgent for me. But it wasn't important in the least. Yet, I focused on that, and I lost out on doing something more productive. Then you have the last category, of course, is not urgent and not important. Not urgent, not important, don't do it. If it's not urgent, not important, don't do it. Simple. For example, oh gee, I'm going to sit here and doom scroll through Facebook, doom scroll through Twitter, play games, what have you. Those things are fine if you're relaxing. It's fine to take a time and take a break and take it easy. But when you're supposed to be doing something at work, when you're supposed to be doing something in business or in life to progress, you don't want to get distracted by things that are not important and definitely not urgent. So most of us do spend too much time in the urgent stuff, which may not even be important, and that never moves the needle. Important stuff sometimes we never pay attention to until it becomes a mess, like cleaning, maintaining your office space, maintaining your cleaning space. These are all important things to do, but they're not urgent and we neglect them. So you got to focus on what's urgent, what's important, and then once you get tackled the urgent and important things first, then you got to make sure to handle the important and not urgent things, and don't get caught up in things that seem important. Now, to be fair, as you're building up discipline and you're working on things, life can knock you off track. When COVID hit, it knocked me off balance. It knocked my business off balance. It made it really, really hard to remain disciplined when you had no customers because, well, basically the entire event industry worldwide got shut down because of this. So the trick is when you work on the momentum and you work on building things up, that momentum makes being disciplined easier and easier and easier and easier. And if you get knocked off that momentum, it's hard to get started again. But if you push through and build up that momentum, you'll get back on track. Now, the first few pushes may be agonizing, but if you keep going, it becomes a habit, and habits are where discipline becomes like muscle memory, and you just do it. Now, what can you do to build up discipline? Well, I'll get to that in just a moment, right after our mid-episode break. And welcome to the mid-episode break. We do not have any new Patreons today, and just to let you know, I am working on revamping and revitalizing the Patreon tiers. I've reset the lowest tier to only $3 a month, and I'm going to start working on updating podcast show notes and setting it up for early episodes, all that good stuff. I'm not quite sure how to work that out. I'm working on that now. However, we do have a new 5-star review on Apple Podcast from Jason Captain Caveman St. Clair, and he says this. The O'Connor Bootstrap podcast is a must-listen for any entrepreneur looking to grow their business without external funding. Hosted by Isaiah O'Connor, this podcast delivers practical, engaging, and insightful content that hits all the right notes. From episodes diving into essential skills like determination to tackling complex topics like business, politics, and stress management, each 32-minute episode is packed with actionable advice. The guest interviews, like the one with John David Mann, are both humorous and inspiring, making the content accessible and enjoyable. With a perfect 5.0 rating on Apple Podcasts, it's clear this podcast resonates with its audience. Highly recommend checking it out on Apple Podcasts or athos.com for a boost of entrepreneurial wisdom. Thank you for that, Jason. And with that, one more note. I have an interview coming up where I interviewed Teresa Posada, and she is an entrepreneur, a business coach. She runs Ding Consulting. She is an amazing lady. Great story. It was a great interview. I really want to pump this up. So if you're listening, get ready for that. That should be up by next Friday. All goes well. We had a little bit of technical issues with the recording. We do have the recording. We just got to fix it. So hopefully we'll get that fixed and up by next Friday. I hope you look forward to that. It's amazing, and it was really nice for me not to be the supervillain monologuing all the time. Anyway, let's get back into today's episode. Welcome back from the break. Now let's get into how do you develop discipline? How do you become a disciplined person? How do you build it like a muscle? Because you can actually build up discipline a step at a time. You don't have to just wake up one day and now you're ultra laser focused disciplined. No, that's not how this works. You build it up. It's like strength training. You do it a little bit every day. So let me give you some good concrete examples, some actionable steps you can actually take to become more disciplined. First of all, it really helps with goal setting. You have to set good goals because, as Zig Ziglar says, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. And with that in mind, you need a target to aim at. If you don't have any goals, if you don't have any plans, good luck being disciplined because you don't know what you're striving to work for. It doesn't work that way. So you need to set goals using the SMART goals technique. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For example, instead of saying, I want more clients, you will say something like, I want to reach out to 5 potential clients every Monday and Friday before the next month. And then you can revisit and adjust these goals. Now, I can do a whole episode, and I probably should do a whole episode on goal setting. It's super important. Just remember, they have to be achievable goals. You can't say, I'm just started my business and my goal is to make $1 million in the first week of my business that I've just started and no one's ever heard of. That's not achievable. But then again, you don't want it to be so simple that it makes no real impact. You can't just say, my goal is to wake up today and have a cup of coffee. Well, that's a goal. It's achievable, but it's a little bit too easy. You got to find a good balance where it's hard enough that you have to struggle a little bit for, but not so impossible that you give up. And then the next step would be to make a plan. It's so much easier to be disciplined when you have a plan. That's what made working at the youth camp work so well, is we had a plan. We had the whole week planned. We had a schedule. We set things up. We had this time we did this time we did that. Then we went on ahead and did this and this and this, and we got things done. You have to have a plan to do it. Not having a plan doesn't help. For example, right now, we're in the middle of a big transition period. And in our transition period, I can't be doing podcasts all day long. So I have a new plan now. I have in the morning from around 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 2 hours to focus on doing my podcasting and any other computer stuff I need to do. And after that, I have a plan what to do next. So today, when I'm done doing the podcast, I'm going to go out and work on cleaning the garage. This is something we need to do as part of our bigger plan to achieve our big goals. So we have to have a plan. We have to set it up. And you can be flexible in your plan too. You can have some plan and flexibility because things knock you off. For example, you're sitting there, you got your plan, everything else, and then you get a phone call from the school, and they say, yes, sorry, but your kid just got his tooth chipped. That can knock your plan off. That's fine. That's good. It really happened to me. You get the phone call from the school. Oh, crap. What now? And that can mess up your plan. But it's okay. You can be resilient. You can come back to that. Then you got to try making some micro habits. Make small habits. It helps making small things like wake up the same time every day, 15 minutes earlier, or just make sure you do one thing that you put in a day. And when you get that one thing, do another thing. And you just slowly add habits that you build and build and build until you have a really good, solid routine. Then you need to go ahead and set some daily priorities. And as I mentioned before, I highly suggest using the Stephen Covey's 4-quadrant model, because you'll get distracted, or at least I will. I'm saying you probably will, because if you're a human, it could be just me. Some people are just naturally disciplined. Okay, fine. But it's very easy to focus on things that seem more urgent than they are, or seem more important than they are, and you don't get things done. Back to the garage. Right now, we're about to move from our house now to another house. In order to do that, we need to clean out the garage first so that we can move the stuff that we're organizing out to the garage. So that's the step-by-step process. I often get into the garage and start getting distracted, and instead of just putting away, for example, my fishing gear, I will stop, open it up, and start getting sidetracked and cleaning it out and organizing it and making everything perfect inside my little fishing box. Meanwhile, the garage looks like a tornado went through it. So instead of getting sidetracked, have a plan. Set my priority. My priority is not organize my fishing box. My priority is cleaning out the garage and making room. That's a priority. Stick to that. And something I came across looking into this thing. Oh, by the way, with priorities, you probably want to set about 3 things per day that you want to finish. 3 concrete things that you need to finish every single day. So, for example, me, it would be doing the podcast and cleaning the garage. Now, I'm only doing 2 things because the garage is a big thing. It's a good 2 or 3 things. Once that's done, my priority might be doing the podcast, then say clean the kitchen, and then say pack up some stuff. Set concrete things to do. And something I came across while researching this was using the timer, the kitchen timer, the Pomodoro method, which is you schedule intervals of work, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes off, or customize that. Some people say like 50 minutes working, 10 minutes break, or 90-20, depending on what fits your rhythm. That's fine. There's tools out there like the focus booster or the tomato timer, and this makes it easier to track. So you break it up. You work really hard, take a few minutes break, go back at it. That way you can focus for a while, but still give your brain a little bit of a break. And then it also helps to track to make sure you're making progress. When you're working really hard on something and you just don't see any progress, it's hard to keep pushing. But it's like a diet. If you are doing a diet and you just never feel like you're losing weight, if you're not weighing yourself in, writing down your weights, and watching yourself go down in weight, then you lose hope. You lose heart. But if you're tracking it, use a journal, use some sort of planner where you're checking checking off things on a box, and as things get checked off, you see your project going down, your progress going up, what have you. That encourages you to keep going, and that encouragement helps you to stay disciplined. And before you do this, you decide your own rules. Set some good rules for yourself. For example, no checking emails before 10 o'clock, or no social media during the week, or at night before bed, or no phone at all after 9 a.m. Write down your own rules, put them down, and put them somewhere you can see it to remind yourself. If you stick to your rules that you make, you're now self-disciplining yourself. You're creating your own rule structure that you're going to follow. And then you need to do something to celebrate your win. When you do well, when you see progress made, you have to take a moment to celebrate that in some way, shape, or form. Especially the everyday boring ones. Use some non-food rewards, because food rewards can really weigh you down, literally. But a reward like you're working really hard on a project on the computer and you succeed, well, go take a minute and go out and relax, or go ahead and take 10 minutes to read or play that game or do your Facebook. Do little rewards that you like to celebrate little milestones. And then just remember, when there's tough days and you feel discipline feels impossible, or you mess up, or you just miss, and you just have a day that's just bad and you don't do great, don't beat yourself up. Remember, it's about progress. It's about taking the steps, and yeah, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but as long as you're making 2 steps forward every time and you're making some progress, that's good. Don't beat yourself up. And it also helps to have some accountability. Have someone else to help you with your goals. Have people like I have in the podcast, Jason St. Clair. He's the one who runs the Athos Business Podcast. He's my friend, my business partner, and he really helps me get going. Like, hey, have you got an episode out? Cool. Or I do an episode, and I tell him, he's like, yes, good job. And this back and forth and this accountability helps me keep going, no matter what happens. And sure, again, like I said, sometimes your kids get sick, you're sick, something happens, and it messes you up. But don't beat yourself up for that. Just get up and keep going. Now, to summarize, it's not about perfection. It's about consistency over time. You don't need to sprint every day, but you do need to show up. If you combine a set goal, discipline, having a teachable spirit, and determination, you've got a foundation most entrepreneurs never lay. I truly believe that if you develop these core secondary powers, all these secondary powers I talked about, humility and a giving spirit, all these things, success will become inevitable. Even if your first idea flops, you'll eventually land on something that works. Why? Because you didn't quit. And that's rare. So, discipline is one of your daily required secondary powers. It's what turns your intention into execution, dreams into action. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it works. Now, if you have any ideas on how to become more disciplined, or to set goals, or you want to talk about any of these things in my podcast, go ahead and reach out to me on all my links. They're on my podcast notes. I'm on Twitter, and I engage with people there. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Please, let's make this a two-way conversation, not just me monologuing like a supervillain. Anyway, until then, I'm your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor. If today's episode added value to your day, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and consider giving us a stellar 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, or more. And remember, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, I will personally read it out in the next episode. To support the show, you can make a one-time gift by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap. Donate through PayPal at paypal.me/IOCPOD, or make a contribution on our Patreon page at patreon.com/IOCPOD. Your support keeps the episodes coming. For even more content and exclusive perks, join our Patreon community at patreon.com/IOCPod. Patrons enjoy ad-free episodes, access to our private Discord server, early content previews, and a lot more. And here's an exciting offer. Get your free trial of our $5 a month Bootstrapper Community Explorer tier. This exclusive tier grants you ad-free content, Discord server access, and early content previews. Join us and be part of the inner circle. If you're feeling more generous, those who join tiers $25 a month and up will have a chance to be a featured guest on this podcast. A massive thank you to Wintergatan for generously providing the incredible intro and outro music at no cost. We appreciate their support. Be sure to check out Wintergatan's amazing work on YouTube at youtube.com/@Wintergatan. Until next time, I'm your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor, signing off. This is the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast, brought to you by Athos Business Solutions. For our companion podcast, the Athos Business Podcast, hosted by Jason St. Clair, along with past episodes and related blogs, visit our website at athos.com. That's ATHEOZ.com or theoz.com. Goodbye for now.